This is a video response to Professor Kurt Hübner's comment on the Berlin Wall, 20 years after, given by Professor Claude Desmarais, Reichwald Professor in Germanic Studies at the UBCOkanagan in Kelowna, BC.
The first thing that needs to be said is that Kurt Hübner, who teaches at UBC in Vancouver at the Institute for European Studies, is a renowned specialist on the economy, particularly that of Germany within Europe, and that I myself am a specialist in literature and culture. So in a sense, this commentary is not that of an expert on the work of an expert, but rather that of someone informed in general about the economic situation in Germany. And really what I want to do is just to discuss a bit what Professor Hübner has talked about and ask a few questions about some of the things that I see perhaps developing in Germany. So Professor Hübner rightly talks about the pretty disastrous political decision to create an exchange between West German and East German marks that has led to a perhaps mild political and economic failure, but something that in general can still be seen as a great success story. The reasons that Professor Hübner then gives are all valid, and then he turns to a study from 2009 which discusses how the cup is either 1/3 empty or 2/3 full, depending how one looks at it, talking about the special status of Berlin, which where the economy really has been in a downturn for a longer period. This, of course, ironically has led Berlin to become an art capital in Europe and the world. And but Professor Hübner also points to the fact that the wages in the East are at about 70%, and the question is, when will there be more equality between East and West, and will the residents of former West Germany, so of the western part of Germany, will they continue to subsidize household incomes in the East? Now, the study that I'm going to be citing from today was done and published in Die Zeit on the 12th of November, and it was called Bilanz der Einheit, really an account taking of unity. It is all in German, but I found it interesting because it also gives graphs of the various factors that are looked at. The first set of factors are population growth or loss and the rate of population loss. And there, a trend continues which really started with the fall of the wall, or even in the late 1940s, 1950s, and that is the emptying out of the East. The only wrinkle that I would see is a sort of north-south divide, and this will actually be important for the question I pose at the end of this response, because what we see is that in Dresden and Leipzig and partially in Berlin, there's not as much loss, or really there's a stable population. The other factors that are talked about are unemployment, and there also the trends are very clear, whereas in a Landkreis or district of Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, unemployment is at over 21%. In Bavaria, for example, there is a Landkreis or region where unemployment is just under 2%. So in some respects, there are very large differences between East and West in terms of employment. The wages I've already discussed, that's also talked about. Social welfare recipients are also discussed, and there's a bit more equality between East and West because there are some depressed regions in the western part of Germany. In GDP, in terms of GDP, it is lower in the East, so which again points to the lack of equality between East and West. And finally, the last factor looked at in this study is growth of industry. And here too, there is a clear indication that although there are differences between the East and the West, there are actually perhaps greater differences between North and South Germany, both in terms of the western part and the eastern part. And so my question to Professor Hübner and also to other experts is whether the north-south divide is not going to play an increasingly important role in German identity and the economic and political success of Germany, and how that would impact the whole discussions about East and West. Thank you.